So why a scenario in the first place? Well, it does provide a really good starting place for us to examine the ethical hacking approach. And methodology in ethical hacking is almost as important, really, as the tools and techniques that we use at a deep level. The high level overview, understanding where we're going and why we're going there, what the initial parameters are, and having a plan is absolutely critical. And it's almost impossible to do that without a scenario, without building that around some type of example or scenario. It gives a lot of good application to the demonstrations I'm going to show you and the problems that we're going to work through. And of course, hypothetical discussions are useful in some cases. There are some cases where it's only possible to discuss a problem or an attack or some type of vulnerability in a hypothetical manner because it may have never happened or it may not really happen. So those will come up, but for the most part, I would prefer, and I think you would prefer as well, to learn in an applied way. This is the kind of thing that can happen. This is the kind of scenario that will come up, and ensuring that we have all of that targeted at a specific scenario helps keep our feet on the ground, so to speak, and help keep the learning that we have here very practical and applicable to jobs. So the scenario is built around a company called Big Money Bank. Big Money Bank is a regional bank, not very large, not too many people, based in Seattle, just because that's convenient for me, frankly, and has some branch offices. I've chosen this type of scenario because it's right in the middle of everything. There are some regulatory compliance needs that a bank will bring, but not too terribly many. It's a small bank, but not so small that it wouldn't have dedicated IT staff, not too large where it actually has thousands and thousands of people, entire buildings and small armies worth of security investigation staff. It's right in the middle of everything. That's why I actually kind of enjoy this particular scenario. And I'll get into the specifics of those right now. The headquarters for Big Money Bank is actually here in Seattle, and it's a standalone building in downtown, just off downtown. This might not seem important right now, understanding where the headquarters is and specifically why it's in its own building, why it's in a standalone. However, as you find out about ethical hacking, as we talk through some of the physical attacks and some of this social engineering attacks, you'll see that the physical location of the headquarters is key to understanding which types of attacks are feasible, which are easier, which are harder. I'll also explain as we go through the course that hackers or attackers tend to be a little bit lazy in that they're going to bring all of their attack strength. They're going to bring as much potency as they can against the weakest link in a security chain in order to get what they want. If Big Money Bank has a single headquarters and all of the interesting information, all of the prize, all of the money, so to speak, is at this one location, well, that's most likely going to be the target, especially if it's got a weak spot. Now, Big Money Bank also has a number of branch offices, like most lending institutions do. Most of the time, they're standalone structures. However, sometimes they're in strip malls or shared structures or in the lobby of a small office building, and in a bunch of different settings, a bunch of rural settings and suburban settings and urban settings. These locations, as you'll find out, are going to give the attacker numerous opportunities for attack. This type of varied setting, this type of mixed environment where sometimes there's a shared wall, sometimes there's not, sometimes there's high security, sometimes low security, will be really, really critical to modeling, threat modeling for an attacker and also for the ethical hacker. You'll see that these are going to vary widely. The threat model is going to vary widely. The approaches are going to vary widely. And of course, the defenses, longer term, as we get to the defending part of the course, are very different depending on the location and the scenario within the location. And also, of course, the communication between the headquarters and the individual branches will most likely be a target. So we're going to examine that throughout this course as well. I talked a little bit about communication. Now, the infrastructure is pretty simple. I've actually kept this pretty simple because it doesn't need to be complicated for ethical hacking. The data center is at headquarters, which is very, very typical for a small and medium-sized company, a single data center. There is a disaster failover or emergency failover site in Chicago. It's essentially a mirror of the data center, a one-to-one mirror, just in case something really, really, really bad happens to Seattle, falls into the ocean or earthquake, that kind of thing. Volcano, Mount St. Helens isn't far away. Chicago can come right back up as a one-to-one mirror. There is an IT staff. The data center IT staff is physically located at headquarters where the main data center is. There's also a small IT staff, contingent IT staff in Chicago for the failover site. You'll see that there will be a lot of interesting opportunities around the data center at headquarters and also around the mirror site and the communications between the two of them. Of course, there's always a people element to ethical hacking and to attacking. It's important to understand within the scenario who the people are, who the players are. Got about 15 full-time IT personnel at Big Money Bank. Some of them are generalists. I would say the vast majority of them are IT generalists, which means they do a bunch of different things. They do deployment, they do operations, they do systems management, and so forth. And then there's some specialists. There's a database administration group. There's auditing and compliance. There's network and server management. Those tend to be more specialist roles where those people have narrower focuses as compared to the generalists that do a lot of different things. In this particular scenario, there's only one security specialist, and that would be you. The security specialist within IT at Big Money Bank is going to be responsible for all of these things, determining security posture, identifying and documenting vulnerabilities, deciding on countermeasures and helping implement them. Generally speaking, all things security would fall to this one person, having also related out to things like audit and regulatory compliance. This is a very typical role for someone that gets the certified ethical hacker credential or has these skills and abilities, this role of being the security specialist in an IT organization. Whether it's a small IT organization or a large IT organization, whether there's a lot of security specialists or just one, the ethical hacking techniques and approaches tend to map very, very closely to this type of specialized role. And so you'll learn all of these kind of things and how to do them throughout this course.